Jackie Jacob. I am the Poultry Extension Specialist here at the University of Kentucky. As part of my job, I coordinate these webinars, monthly webinars on small and backyard flocks. We do them every month, hopefully. They are recorded, so you should see that it is being recorded. If you don't, it is being recorded. The recordings will be made available either later today or early tomorrow if you want to view it again or if you want to rewatch it. Our speaker today is going to be Hope Kassube from University of Minnesota. She just started a new job there. She was at Penn State University. While she is presenting, I will turn off my video and mute my audio, and I will monitor all the Q&A box and the chat box. If you have a question at any time, feel free to type it in. If you're like me, if you don't type it in, you forget it. I will monitor those. If it is a clarification of something that Hope is talking about at that moment, then I will pop back up and interrupt her to get a clarification of something she's talking about. If not, I will hold all the questions to the end, but I will monitor both the Q&A and the chat box. So feel free to put in your question at any time. So as I said, Ms. Kassube, Hope, is giving us the webinar today on cracking the code on egg carton labels. Sometimes they can be a bit confusing. I did that with some students yesterday, and I, showed you just how confusing they can be. So it's all yours, Hope, and I will be on mute.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Like Jackie said, I recently moved back. I'm from Minnesota. I recently moved back after being in Pennsylvania for 6.5 years, basically doing the same job at the University of Minnesota that I did at Penn State, but just a little closer to my family and where I grew up. So this is my third week, so I'm still kind of new, but I have been doing the similar job. So hopefully this goes okay. Whoops, 1 second. One thing that is different is this is the first time I'm doing a presentation on my new computer setup, but I think it will be okay. Okay, so today we're going to talk about first labels on cartons that pertain to different types of housing systems, then some other types of claims and labels that you might see on egg cartons, a little bit about egg safety and quality, and then what to do if you're selling locally produced eggs from small flocks. So my information comes from Minnesota, but it is going to be very similar across all the states. But just one thing that you should make sure to always check in with your state Department of Agriculture, just to make sure that you don't have any additional rules. And also I've used photos in here just to show like what it would look on a carton. I'm not endorsing any specific brand of eggs or any company or even any housing system. It's just to kind of whatever picture I thought gave a good representation of what we were talking about. Okay, labels for types of housing systems. So if you go to the grocery store and you buy your carton of eggs, if you guys have small flocks, maybe you're not buying your eggs, but if you look on it and it doesn't really say anything special, it doesn't say cage-free or free range or pasture, they're most likely coming from conventional cages. These are where chickens are kept in cages with around 67 to 80 square inches per hen, generally in groups of 4 to 9. Another thing I meant to say is when I'm talking about the housing systems, these are not laws or regulations. It's based off of what a lot of certifying bodies do. So it might be a little bit different than what I say, but more or less it's a representation of what most of those housing systems look like. So in these cages, a manure collection belt is located beneath the cages. In the past, they used to have houses where the manure just dropped straight down into a pit. There's still some of those in operation, but they're getting away from building any more of those just because the ammonia gets really high. And also, you can imagine keeping the manure and everything is worse for like rodents and pests and salmonella and that sort of thing. Usually there's a feed trough in the front of the cage, and you can see that, well, especially on the bottom row or the middle row of chickens. And the water nipples are usually located in the back, usually sharing with the cages on the other side. So kind of in the middle of both. And there's usually an automatic egg collection system in place, like you can see. And like I said before, if your carton of eggs doesn't have any label on it, it's probably coming from one of these. Now, producers are allowed to downgrade. So if they do have pasture eggs or cage-free eggs, they can put them in the regular cartons, but generally they'll be from buildings like this one. Colony cages. So we are not using very many of these in the United States, but there's some still. They're similar to conventional cages, but larger. They house larger groups of birds, generally around 30 to 60. That's why it's called a colony. And they're stocked at 67 to 116 square inches per hen. If it is called an enriched colony cages, these are similar to the colony cages, but they include additional furnishings such as perches, nest boxes, and scratch pads, and they'll generally have at least 116 square inches per hen. And I have actually never seen a carton that had this label on it, but I did Google it. I guess there are some, but I've personally never seen it labeled, anything labeled in the grocery stores as a colony cage. Now moving on to cage-free. So like the name implies, these birds are not raised in cages. They can be housed in barns on the floor, on slats, or in an aviary, which is a tiered system, like in the photo there. They may or may not have outdoor access. Cage-free does not mean that they automatically get to go outside, but sometimes they do. But they're also provided amenities like perches, nest boxes, and scratch areas. They're usually stocked at 1 square foot per hen or higher. And the pullets, or the young layer hens, need to be raised in a similar system as to what they're going into. Otherwise, they won't know how to, climb and navigate through that system and find where to eat and drink and where to perch at night. And these, if you've heard of California Prop 12, barns that are cage-free certified generally can be certified as California Prop 12 compliant. The next type is free range. These are similar to cage-free, but they include outside access. To label the eggs as free range, they must have outside access for a minimum number of hours per day and a minimum number of days per year, depending on factors such as disease risk and weather. For example, right now in Pennsylvania, they were letting the birds stay inside due to the high avian influenza risk in the area. But once that risk is kind of lowered, they'll require them to be going back outside again. It generally requires 1 acre of range for every 2,000 hens, and also includes specific requirements for having outside drinking water, shelter, and vegetation management. Pasture is similar to free range, but with a larger outside range area. And this usually requires around 2.5 acres of pasture for every 1,000 hens. So they get a lot of space to spread out. Usually when I've actually seen them out in the field, they tend to stay closer to the barn. Even when they have these little huts out there, they're required to provide them something, shade and protection from predators and also water. So these birds on the bottom picture are under a little shelter with their water. And they have a lot of, area that they can go out from, but generally they like to stay a little bit closer to the barn because that's where they feel safe. Okay, so some other types of labels and claims that don't have to do with the housing system. One would be organic. This can be certified by the USDA. This means that the hens have to be fed an organic, vegetarian diet with no genetically modified organisms in the feed or synthetic pesticides used to grow the ingredients. No antibiotics were used except when medically necessary, and they must be allowed outside access similar to free range and pasture systems. Some other examples, and some of these are kind of actually tricks. So um, the no antibiotics ever means that the hens in their whole life were never given antibiotics. However, if it becomes sick, they're required to treat those chickens and then take them out of the system. But the trick part about this is that no antibiotic residue is present in any eggs that you buy because federal law requires a withdrawal period before the eggs are marketed anyway. Some people like the peace of mind knowing that those chickens were never given antibiotics, but you can be assured that the eggs that you buy, even if they don't have that label, don't have any residue in them anymore. No hormones added is also kind of a trick because it's prohibited by the Food and Drug Administration to give hens any hormones or steroids. So yeah, if you see that label, it's true. But if another carton of eggs also has that it doesn't have that label, they also don't have hormones. And the phrase farm fresh doesn't necessarily really mean anything. It's just kind of a phrase um, that kind of sounds good to put on the carton. It may mean that the eggs were never frozen, which usually people don't freeze the eggs anyway, but that's just kind of a marketing gimmick. Another label that the carton might have is enhanced omega-3. And these are from hens fed specialized diets that result in yolks containing 3 to 5 times more omega-3s than conventional eggs. And these are tested and verified. So you know this is not a gimmick. I mean, whether or not that level of omega-3 improves your health, I can't say, but it is verified to have the extra omega-3s when they have that label. A vegetarian diet is also pretty self-explanatory, means that they were fed a diet free of animal byproducts. But these birds, sometimes people assume that they're free range or cage free. That it doesn't mean that they are unless they also say that. They can be from conventional cages or cage free. And the USDA does require documentation to support the vegetarian claim. So this is also a label that is valid when it has that, you know, they were not fed any animal byproducts. Pasteurized eggs are just what we say. This confirms that the eggs were heated to a specific temperature for a set time, and this helps eliminate salmonella. This can be like whole shell eggs or egg products, and these are good for people that want to use them to make like ice cream or eggnog or something that requires a raw egg, and you're just not sure if you want to take the risk of possibly getting sick. It's also good for any immunocompromised people. If you do cook your eggs thoroughly, you would basically eliminate the risk anyway. But some people just want that extra assurance. And this is also verified by USDA graders. And then they do test a certain number of eggs to ensure compliance and make sure that they do not have salmonella. This is a new label, I believe, started on early January. You can actually go, I forgot the exact website. Oh, USDA.gov/USA. And they have like a little promotional commercial about it. It's very patriotic. But basically, product of the USA means that this is for any meat, poultry, and egg products. And it means that all stages of production occurred in the US. And their slogan is American from start to finish. And this is also has USDA oversight. This is a totally voluntary program, but some people are starting to use this for meat and egg products. Okay, now we're going to go into a little bit of egg safety and quality. So the safe handling of eggs. So eggs should be refrigerated at or below 45 degrees Fahrenheit, ideally at or below 40 degrees. Eggs need to be cooked until the yolks are firm, and any foods like a quiche or something that you cook containing eggs needs to be cooked to 160 degrees. If you have this is kind of important for Easter coming up for those that celebrate this. If you do have hard cooked eggs, you should use these up within a week of cooking them, and obviously keep them refrigerated the whole time. If you have like a quiche or something egg dish like that, you need to refrigerate those leftovers and use them within 3 to 4 days. When you're cooking, avoid any cross-contamination of raw eggs with utensils or other foods, unless you're gonna obviously cook those other foods. But you don't want to be, scrambling your egg with a fork or a whisk and then using that to, move a piece of fruit or a vegetable that you're going to eat without cooking, because that you could transfer salmonella to that other food item. This, I don't know that most people that celebrate Easter probably do not adhere to this rule, but you shouldn't actually eat the Easter eggs that have been hidden outside. Now, if they were outside for less than 2 hours and they were in a clean environment, it might be okay. But if you don't really want to eat something that has been out, on the ground or the dirt, might have gotten little cracks to get something inside of it. I know we're probably all not going to follow that rule on Sunday, but that's the official statement. Next, we're going to look at egg carton dates. So I borrowed this photo from eggsafety.org, and you can see the first number that's circled is the plant number, and every plant has a number that corresponds to them, so the eggs can be traced back. The second 3-digit number is the Julian date, and you probably know that goes from 001 for January 1st to December 31st being day 365. And you can always, if you don't have a calendar with the Julian dates, you can just Google it. It's obviously changes on leap year, but otherwise is the same year to year. And then some cartons may or may not have a sell by date underneath. So if it says sell by, this means that it should be no more than 30 days after the pack date to be able to put that stamp on the carton. If it says best by, that means no more than 45 days have passed since the pack date. However, eggs can be safely eaten 2 to 3 weeks beyond these expiration dates. These dates are more for the store to see their inventory and make sure that, that they're not selling product that's going to be expiring soon. Now, larger companies, over 3,000 layers, have to participate in the shell egg surveillance program. And this applies to sites that grade and pack their own eggs. It also applies to sites that grade and pack eggs from production sources other than their own. It applies to hatcheries, and it applies to hard-cooked eggs. They're required to register with the USDA, and a state or federal inspector will visit at least 4 times a year to verify compliance. And if it's a hatchery, they'll go once a year. Now moving on to quality, this is not the same as food safety. All of these eggs should be probably the same as regarding food safety, but for quality, there's 3 consumer grades, and they're AA, A, and B. And I'll have a picture on the next page that's actually from the University of Kentucky. But this is determined by the interior quality of the egg and the appearance and condition of the shell. So to be USDA AA, it has to have thick, firm whites, a high round yolks, and clean and unbroken shells. To be grade A, and these are the ones that most likely you'll find in the store. They have the characteristics of the AA eggs, but the whites won't probably be quite as firm. And the USDA grade B would be whites that may be thinner and yolks may be wider and flatter, and they might have some stains on the shells. And here is a photo from the National 4-H Poultry, um, training for the University of Kentucky, and you can just kind of see the difference of the grade A from the top and then from the side view. And you can just tell, I mean, the biggest difference obviously is between double A and B. And you can tell that the grade A is kind of in the middle, and that's usually what we'll get when we purchase our eggs at the supermarket. If you have your own hens and you're collecting them daily, you probably will see lots of double A's. Okay, so now what to do if you're selling locally produced eggs from a small flock? And again, these are the guidelines from Minnesota. So I encourage you to check for your own state and country if you're in a different country, but they should be very similar. There's not going to be something that's totally different than what you're seeing here. So for in Minnesota, you do not need a food handler's license or inspection if the flock is under 3,000 layers. If you're selling these eggs away from your premises, like not right on your farm at the end of the road in a stand or something, you need to follow state regulations for handling, labeling, and storage. The eggs need to have a clean exterior, and all shell eggs must be candled and graded. They also need to be properly sized, and this is not for each egg, but for a dozen, the jumbo eggs should weigh 30 ounces, the extra large should weigh about 27, large 24, medium 21, and small 18. You need to properly refrigerate and maintain that temperature throughout storage and delivery. There is a bit of, I think it's 4 hours in Minnesota where you have a little bit of leeway to put them on ice packs, but once that 4 hours is passed, they need to go back in the fridge. All these eggs, all the cartons need to be properly labeled with the grade, size, and type, with the name, address, and zip code of the producer, with the Julian date of packaging, with the freshness date. It needs to contain the statement, perishable, keep refrigerated, and it needs to contain safe handling instructions, exactly these words: to prevent illness from bacteria, keep eggs refrigerated, cook eggs until yolks are firm, and cook foods containing eggs thoroughly. They are also encouraged to register with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture if they're selling in Minnesota. Now, if you're selling these eggs from your own farm, like right from your barn or the end of your road, you are not required to comply with all of these things, but it's encouraged that you do, especially the refrigeration. That is all I had. So we have a lot of time for questions.
Perfect. If you'd like to stop sharing, they can see us. Just some clarifications on the last part. Hope talked about Minnesota regulations. Other states, as she stated, are different. Kentucky is different. We do not allow reusing of cartons in any way, shape, or form if you are selling eggs. So you have to have your own cartons. You don't need a license unless you sell more than 60 dozen eggs in any one week, which is about, what did I calculate that as? 100 hens. So if you have more than 100 hens, you need a license. Regardless of how many eggs you sell, whether you're selling, a couple of dozen a week, you have to follow egg law. So you have to refrigerate and everything else. That's a food safety issue. And something that gets forgotten a lot is that if anybody gets sick from eggs you sold, they can sue the pants off you. So if you are selling from your farm, I highly recommend product liability insurance before you start selling eggs, because that will prevent you from being sued. I know a lot of farms who have added egg production as a part of their their income source, and then ended up losing the whole farm because somebody got sick. We had a big case here in Kentucky where somebody, a backyard, small flocks, was not properly handling the eggs, and were selling to somebody who made pastries that sold to Ramsey's restaurant. And 40 people got salmonella poisoning because the eggs had not been stored properly. So I'm sure a whole pile of people are currently being sued. So Mitchell asked to repeat the guidance on reusing cartons on farm. Do not, in Kentucky at least, other states may have the same situation. You cannot reuse somebody else's carton. So any cartons, any eggs you sell have to be in cartons with your name on it and all those things that she showed. If you want to back up a few slides there, Hope, you had a list of all the things that had to be on cartons. You can just, just back up a little bit. Right there. So you have to have your own cartons. You can get some already, pre-labeled with the grade, size, type, with your address and stuff on it. And the statement, perishable, keep refrigerated, and the safe handling instructions that has to be from the words that she talked. So you can get those printed, and then you can just put your own stamping for the Julian date of when you packaged, and then either the best by, use by, or sell by dates, which are the 30 or 45 days, depending on what you put on. So they require that. Oh, we also require the nutrition label, and it has to be the USDA nutrition label. It can't be modified from the nutrition label unless you can prove it. So Hope, you talked about some that were nutritionally modified with the extra omega-3s, or some Eggland's Best, for example, their eggs only have 60 calories instead of the typical 70 in a USDA label. But as Hope said, they have to prove it. They have to send in lab and feed to prove it. You can say things like produced with feed containing extra omega-3s, but then you can't, sort of implies that your eggs are better, but you just saying you feed it, so you hope it is. And then you still have to be able to test the feed. So no reusing of cartons. You have to have your own cartons with your own name. And that is because if it's got somebody else's name on it, when they try to trace back a food safety issue, they don't have the name of the person who did it, who packaged it, and also, their dirty eggs. If you're selling directly from the farm, what a lot of people will do is have egg flats, and you can even get plastic egg flats so you can reuse them. Just clean them between times sending them out there, and then they bring their own carton. You can do that as long as you have posters that have all that information that is provided, that should be provided on egg cartons. So you're just selling them as individual eggs, and they bring their own cartons to transport. That's one way to get away with it, but you cannot sell the eggs in somebody else's carton. I don't know. Can you do that in Minnesota, Hope? I don't remember.
I don't know, but I don't think so. I was trying to look it up, and it's not, whatever I'm putting in is not coming up. It keeps saying you shouldn't do it because of salmonella risk, but I
Well,
can't
that is
find,
one risk too, but there's
yeah, I can't find anything that talks about the traceability risk, but I would assume you can't, I mean, it's sort of common sense that you can't sell something that has a different address on it coming from your own house, like that.
yeah, yeah. And it may have, different things on it, and it may not have the things you want on it, like the free range or the outdoor access or the cage free or whatever. A lot of people like to sell mixed color too, so that's always interesting. Okay, anybody have any questions. So make sure you always talk with your Department of Ag in your state to see what the rules are in your state, because every state is different for poultry, whether it's eggs or meat. They have different requirements, and not all states accept the USDA exemptions that are on there. Kentucky does not accept USDA exemptions for processing of poultry. We do not allow home processing and sale of chicken. So make sure you always check with your state Department of Ag before you sell anything. And anytime you are selling a food, have product liability. Well, yeah, even vegetables have product liability insurance. People have gotten sick from lettuce. You have to be really careful on what you're selling. And with the eggs, even if they mishandle the eggs, it's still your problem. So, any questions? Okay, not seeing any. I would like to thank you guys for coming. Let me just see what's the next webinar on. The next webinar is May 7th, and we will be talking about factors to consider before opening a new poultry processing facility. There is a lot of interest in people having their own poultry processing facility to custom process chicken or turkeys or quail or whatever. Some of the things to consider before you do that, and one of those is, of course, state law. State law varies from state to state. As I said, home slaughter is not accepted here in Kentucky. Then we look in June is on composting poultry processing waste. And then July is developing a required HACCP plan if you are opening a poultry processing facility. And then so far, the only ones I've booked to is August, which is vermiculture, an alternative for poultry management. So if you don't see something that you would like to have a talk on, just email me. And because I still haven't gone past August on booking them. So email me what you would like to hear about. If it's not there, not in any of the recordings, and we'll see if we can get a presentation on it. So thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Hope. Great presentation. Glad you're getting settled in Minnesota despite your weather. I hope to see you all next month. Bye-bye.
Bye.